Hello and welcome back to the course. Today is going to be a short but sweet refactoring video. It's a holiday today, and over the next few days, videos might be a bit shorter than usual, but we'll try to keep going and keep adding to our project. We'll be adding a new auto load today that will be extremely useful as our project expands and becomes more complex. We'll also be changing how our little coin functions, because I want to add some physics to it and physics interactions to it. Physics are fun, and it's also a really great thing to learn. So with that out of the way, let's actually move into our editor and just start making our changes. So first thing we want to do here is go down into our autoloads folder here in our file tree. We're going to create a new script, not a new scene, a new script. And we're just going to call this one node extensions. I cannot spell extensions. Yeah, we're going to call this node extensions. We can remove the basic template code because we won't be needing it. Now, what this is going to be for at the start is a getter script, right? It's going to be getting certain things for us that we'll be able to use kind of node-wide. That's why I call it node extensions. I want every node to kind of have the capability of actually using these functions. So we're going to make a couple of constants very quickly. We'll go const, and the first one we're going to make is for the entity container. So on the left here in our scene tree, if we have the main scene open, on the left you'll see that we have our entity container, level, camera, UI, and manager containers. We want to make a getter kind of function for all of these things so we can start instantiating things into them in other scenes or from other nodes. And that's going to be really useful for like a drop system or a monster spawning system in the future. So first, we're going to start with a constant for the entity container. Now, I'm going to use all caps for this because it's pleasing to the eyes for me to actually see my constants in capitals. This will be of type string, and we're going to set it equal to entity underscore container. So that's kind of how we're going to set up all of the constants here, is we're going to have capitalized for the name, and then for the actual value that we want to use basically the lowercase version of it. So we have one for the entity container. Now we'll go and make one for the level container. So const level underscore container string, and then set it to level underscore container. And I'll show you how we use these in a second after we set them up. So the next one will be for the manager underscore container. Once again, a string, I'll set that equal to manager underscore container. One more for the camera container. The camera container isn't the most necessary one. It is one that we can kind of skip because well, we won't really need it, but it's nice to make sure we have access to that container in general. So camera underscore container. And then finally, we want one for our UI underscore container. I really hope those beeps aren't coming through the microphone. That comes from my Discord, which I should probably close. There we go. So with our constants set up, we can now go and move into setting up the functionality for them, which is actually quite simple and easy, right? We just want to create a function, and we'll call this, or the first one, get underscore entity, there we go, underscore container. It won't need any parameters, and it will be of node return type. So it'll be returning a node. How do we actually want this to work? Well, we're going to want it to, of course, return something, right? So we need a return in there. And now we're actually going to need to go and get the container. Now, the easiest way of actually doing this is to add groups to our containers and then use the get first node in group functionality. So that's what we're going to go do first. We'll start from the top. So manager container. We'll click on that. We'll go to node. We'll go to groups. And then where it says add here, we'll come over to our script. We'll grab the manager container text that we've set up, copy it, and then paste it in. So that's the manager container. Now we'll do the same for each container. So there's the manager, we'll go to UI, go to camera, level. Did I add that to the camera? I did not. There you go, level container. And then finally the entity container, which is the most important one. Now I'm going to just flick through these, make sure that all of my containers are set up, and they are. And now what we've got to do is just return the actual node itself. So to do that, we'll use get_tree dot get first node in group. And then we just have to kind of put in the string name. And this is why we create constants for this, because it makes it a bit easier to kind of edit and modify on the fly if we need to. So for the entity container, we just need to use all caps and type in entity container, like so. And that's it. That's how we do the container returns. So we can actually get those containers and use them in other scripts easily. And that's kind of also why this is an auto load, which we haven't set up yet, but we'll move into that after we set the functionality up. So now all we can do is hit Control-C, copy the whole function, create a couple new lines, and then do this for each container node that we want to do. So start with 4. So we have entity done. Let's move into the level container. So we'll rename this function to get level container, and then give the return the level container like so. And we'll just kind of go through our list like that. So we have level, we want manager next, then camera, and then finally we want one for the UI. And that's it. It will return the nodes that we actually need when we call these functions. Now, as I said, every script can use these now. So if we go up to project settings, auto loads, and then we actually add our new auto load in here, which is the node extension script like so. And we click add. Every script can now actually call this functionality by calling the node extensions. So to show that off, I'll go into our player script real quick. This is a relatively large script. I'll just go into the ready function. I will go node. There you go, call node extensions, then use dot get underscore, let's go get entity container. That's going to be a bit odd because I didn't save. There we go. Get underscore entity container, and it will now return the node itself. So what I can do is just throw this into a print string, and then we'll hit play and see what happens. It might crash, it didn't crash. There we go, and at the bottom here in the output, it literally just says the output here is entity container, and then it gives us the actual node kind of thing that we're looking for. So we know it works. So that is giving us this information for this specific node in our main tree. So that is the node extensions script handled and sorted. We won't be putting any use into this yet, but this will be of greater use probably in the next video, which will be handling the drop system for our enemies. So with that done, let's go and move on to refactoring and changing our coins a little bit, because as much as I like our little coins, they're a bit bland because they do nothing and they have like no physics interactions, which means you can't really do physics you can't do physics related things with them. So to do that, we are going to go into our scenes folder, scroll down to collectibles, open the basecoin.tscn. We're going to open the script for it as well because we're going to need this. And now this is where things can get a bit weird. Things can break a little bit doing this, so you're going to want to be a bit careful when you do it. And I'll just kind of walk you through my process of doing this. So first thing I want to do is go to the base coin here, the actual root of the node, right click on it, change the type, and I'm changing the type to a rigid body 2D. Now, if we try to run this, the script attached to it is going to kind of throw some errors and not work too well. So what we now want to do is change the extends inside of the script to a rigid body 2D extends, like so. That way this will now function fine. Now if I click play, a few things are going to happen. The coin will fall through the map, which means physics are enabled, and we won't be able to collect it anymore if it wasn't falling through the map. So let's fix the falling through the map issue first. To do that, we can click on the base coin or the root, go to the inspector, come down to collision, and we want to make sure it's colliding with certain things, right? So let's go and make it collide with the floor. Hit Control S and save, hit play, and now it's no longer kind of falling through the map. Now if I touch this, we don't collect it, but we do have that physics interaction of it colliding with things. What I'm going to do very quickly is I'm going to go to the main scene, go to the base coin inside the entity container, hit Control D to duplicate, Now I'm going to move this new duplicated coin up to where this enemy is up here. Now, the enemies shouldn't have any impact on this coin, right? It's not looking for the layer, it doesn't know that the enemy exists. So let's go back to our base coin and actually set the mask to look for the enemy, and then hit play, and you'll see now that the enemy is now interacting with the coin. It's pushing the coin up when it collides with it. Well, that's kind of cool. So we now have basic physics interaction, but of course our coins are now broken. They can't be collected and they're not really working the way we want them to work, right? So to fix that, what we now need to do is go back to our base coin, go to the root node, hit Control A to add, and we're going to want to add an area 2D because we want to reset up that whole area system that we had so the coin can actually be collected. Now, we're also going to need to add a collision shape to the area 2D so it has its own collider. Now I need to modify a few things. Before I add a collision shape, we're going to go to the rigid bodies collision shape, which is at the top here. And we are going to go and change the size of this to actually just be inside the coin a little bit, like this. That'll make it kind of be a little bit tighter to the floor and kind of everything that it collides with. So it looks a little bit more like it's actually making impact with things. And now the area 2D for the collection specifically, we're going to, once again, add a circle shape. We'll move it up. We will pull in the size of that just a little bit. And now when we click on the area 2D, we need to do two things. The first thing we want to do is make sure the group of this is the collectible group. And the second thing is change the collision layer. So once again, collectible group. And then we come down and we need to change the layers. So this only needs to exist on the collectible layer and it needs to be looking for the player. So I hit Control S and save, we'll click play, and you'll see it crashed. Why? Well, that's because when we're doing our area 2D check here to see if it has something called a value, we are checking if the area itself has the value. Well, the area itself will not ever have a value, right? Because it has no script attached to it. What does have a value is the actual base version of it. The actual base coin, the rigid body, has the script attached to it, that has the value. So to change that and get that to work, we need to add basically where it says health handler.handle healing here, area.value, we need to change this to area.get_parent.value. Now, that will be a bit of a pain to keep retyping. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a new variable above this little bit of script. We'll go var, and we'll go area_parent. We'll set this equal to, or set this of type, we'll just do node for now, even though we know it's a rigid body, but we don't know if everything is going to be a rigid body, so we'll just use node. And then we'll set that equal to the area.get_parent. Now, the other thing we can do here is actually remove the setting entirely, and we can just use this : equals. Now, what that will do is go, the area parent is typed as and equal to the type of the area.getParent. So let's say this is now a rigid body. So this will now be a rigid body, and this is fine for now. We can use this. And now all we have to do is go under the health handler.handle healing part, and then call area parent.value. And then we just do that for each time the area is getting called. So area_parent.value. And then finally for the Q3 here, we can go area_parent.Q3. Now I hit Control S and save, restart the game. And now our coins are going up. Do that one more time. It's Q3ing, and if you look at our coins, they are going up and doing what they need to. We can now jump on our enemies, and everything is the exact same as it should be. And that's pretty much kind of done. Now there is one last thing I want to do to this, and that is I want to add a really simple animation to our coin to make it feel a little bit more alive. So to do that, we'll go to the animation player in the base coin scene, we'll go to animation, new. If you don't have the animation appearing when you click animation player, there should be a tab at the bottom here for animation. You click on animation player, tab for animation, click animation new. we're just going to call this the idle animation. I'm going to set this to a 1.2 length. So over here in the length, 1.2. Pull the bottom scrubber up a bit so we can see what's going on a bit more. There we go. Actually, let's set this to 0.4. 0.4 might be a bit better. I'm going to want this looping and autoplay because nothing else will actually play this animation. I just want it to play on load and loop forever. And now we're going to want it to do a few things, right? Well, one, we want to make sure the sprites, specifically the sprite's position, has a keyframe. And we don't really care about the texture. The texture can change, but we want to keep the sprite's position keyframed. So we're going to make 3 of those. We're going to make one at 0 seconds, one at 0.7 seconds, and then one at the very end of the animation at 0.4 or 1.4 seconds here. And now the middle frame is the one that we're going to be changing. We're going to be changing the Y value to be negative. We'll go negative 12 to start. And now we'll just click play on the animation. And it feels a bit rigid, you know, a bit stuck, like it's just moving up and down and there's no bounce to it. So let's go down to the interpolation mode here. Change that to cubic and then hit play. And there we go. Now we've got this like nice little coin bounce feeling to it. Now there's one other thing that we can do with this that makes it look and feel a bit better. If we click on our first keyframe in our position, you'll see this thing called easing. We can actually adjust these to make the animation feel differently. Like if I do 3.6 easing here, and then I click play, you'll see the start of the animation starts slower and then ramps up rapidly. So what if I want to go, let's say, in the opposite direction? Let's go 0.5. Now it hangs a little bit more in the air and it gets there a little bit slower. That's okay. So let's go to the middle keyframe and change this a little bit. Let's go 1.5, see how that feels. This is just a lot of like kind of testing and figuring it out as it goes. Okay, let's do that in the other direction. Let's go 0.5. That's a little bit too like fast going down. What I might do is just set this to 1, so it's just a flat line up. And let the actual interpolation kind of take control of this and do it itself. And yeah, that kind of seems fine to me. So we'll hit Control S to save, we'll hit play, and the animation should now be playing, but we can't really see it because the debug is on. If you've got all of the collision shapes, go to debug, visible collision shapes, untick that, hit play, and there we go. Let's full screen this a bit. And you can now see our animation is kind of going, but there is a downside here. If you look at the animation on the coin that is currently getting touched, it's kind of looking a little bit odd, right? So to fix that, let's go to the base coin. Let's go down into the deactivation here. And we want to go and click lock rotation. Hit Control S and save. So what lock rotation is going to do is it's going to give it physics-based interaction like we have, but it won't be able to rotate the coin at all. So the animation won't be skewed in any direction. So that is our base coin set up and sorted, and everything's pretty much ready to go. Now, as I said before, it's a holiday today, so happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy whatever you want to celebrate. And if you're not celebrating, just make sure you have an amazing day. I hope you're having a great game dev journey, and I will see you in the next video.